Hey, what's going on, guys? It's etaprime back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at this $250 Athlon powered HP laptop that I recently picked up from Best Buy. So as of making this video, this laptop is actually on sale for $249, but in the past on Amazon I've seen this as low as $239, so keep your eye out if you're interested in something like this. Now this is definitely not a high performance laptop, hence the price, $250 and sometimes even lower. It's powered by an Athlon 3050U and it comes with 4GB of RAM pre-installed. But this can be upgraded because we do have a free SODIMM slot in there, so you could upgrade this to 16 gigs. I would recommend at least 8 with something like this. As for I/O, over on the right hand side we have a 3.5mm audio jack, 2 USB 3.1 ports, full-size HDMI, gigabit Ethernet, and our power input. Moving over to the left-hand side, we have a single USB Type-C port and a full-size SD card reader. This does come with a 45-watt power supply, and as for the specs, for the CPU, we have that AMD Athlon Silver 3050U. It's a dual-core CPU, base clock of 2.3 GHz with a boost up to 3.2. Built-in Radeon 2 graphics at 1100 MHz, 4 GB of RAM running at 2400 MHz, but like I said, this can be upgraded to 16, a 128 GB M.2 SSD, also user upgradable, and a 14-inch display at 1366 by 768. Now a lot of these cheaper laptops do come pre-installed with Windows 10 S, but all you need to do to switch it over to Windows 10 Home is hit up the Microsoft Store, and there's an application that allows you to get out of S mode for free. I wanted to see how we could upgrade this system, so I went ahead and pulled the bottom off, and as you can see, we can add another stick of RAM. We can also replace that M.2 drive. This is an actively cooled system, so we do have a fan built in. And it looks like they left the spot for a 2.5-inch drive, but there's no adapter included, and I'm not sure how you'd go about getting one. So since this is using one of those AMD Athlon CPUs with built-in graphics, dual channel RAM is definitely going to help out. And in this video, I'm actually going to be upgrading this to 8 gigs of RAM for all of my testing. But unfortunately, even if I throw 3200 MHz RAM in here, it only runs at 2400 MHz, and there's no way to change that in the BIOS. So you're kind of stuck at that speed. But we can upgrade the capacity, and real quick I wanted to show you the difference between dual channel and single channel RAM when it comes to GPU benchmarks on this unit. So here we have 3D Mark Night Raid with a total score of 3,435, our graphics score is 3,841, and just by adding a second stick of RAM, we bumped the total score up to 4,001, but if we take a look at that graphics score, it's now 4,695. This is a significant bump when it comes to these integrated GPUs, especially the very low-end ones like the Radeon 2 we have in this unit. When it comes to everyday usability of this laptop, I mean, it's worked out pretty well. It's got a decent little trackpad, keyboard's fine. I mean, this stuff is not top of the line, but if you want to get some web browsing done, some Zoom meetings, some Google Classroom, and you don't want to go with a Chromebook, this could be a good option. As for media playback, it does a really good job at 1080p, and it'll even handle 4K video with a few drop frames. Let's head over to YouTube real quick and check out some 4K video streaming. So here we are streaming some 4K content from YouTube, and out of 1,000 frames we've dropped around 30. It's not the greatest, but it's doing a decent job for a $250 laptop. A lot of people will not be streaming 4K, and if you want to do 720 and 1080, it's going to work just fine. A laptop like this is definitely not meant for gaming, but I still wanted to test some stuff out and see what we could run. I also tested out some emulation by the end of this video. First up, Minecraft. Super easy to run. This is the Windows Store version, and it's running great here. I haven't had any issues. We're at 16 chunks rendering distance, and this will be playable on a laptop like this. So let's go ahead and move up a little bit. Here we have CSGO, the lowest I can go in the settings, 720p, and by the end of this, it averaged 41 FPS. It did better than I thought, but it's still not great, as you can see. Fortnite fared just a bit better, 720p, performance mode, 75% resolution scale, got an average of 51 FPS. Got a lot of dips going on, and it really comes down to this very low-end GPU and a dual-core processor. When we get out to an open area, it does a much better job, but when there's a lot of stuff going on and you're in a firefight, this will fall on its face. I also tested out VALORANT, which is fairly easy to run. We're at 720p low. I got an average of 44 FPS, and in some areas it looked really good, but when it started dipping down, it got really stuttery. It's basically unplayable on this, even though you're seeing this go up to around 70 in some spots. Since those quote-unquote newer games weren't running so well on this device, I figured we'd go back a little bit. Here's Skyrim, 720p, medium settings, and we're running at a constant 60. This is one of my favorite games, and personally, I don't mind playing this at 720p. Works great on this little machine. The final game I wanted to test here was GTA 5. Now going into this, I knew it wasn't going to run well, so what I did was just set it to 720p. We have VSync set to half, normal settings basically as low as we can go, and it's trying its hardest to keep it at 30, but there is a lot of weird stuff going on. And when I turn VSync completely off and try to drive around the city, everything just starts disappearing. I mean, we just don't have enough power with this little laptop to run a game like this, even at the lowest of the low settings. So it didn't do a great job with PC gaming, but when it comes to emulation, there's a ton of stuff that's going to run at full speed on this. Here we have Dreamcast using the Redream emulator up in the top left-hand corner. I do have the FPS on. We're upscaled to 1280 by 960, and it's running great here. I was actually surprised to see it running Chains of Olympus this well. We're at 2x resolution using the PPSSPP emulator with the DirectX 11 backend. This thing also handles GameCube and Wii pretty well using the Dolphin emulator with the DirectX 11 backend. This is Auto Modalista, one of the harder ones to run, and if we take a look up in the top left-hand corner, this is running at full speed. And finally, some Wii emulation, Sonic Colors, DirectX 11 backend, still with that Dolphin emulator, it's running great. I did go through and try to test out some PS2. Some games will run with a ton of hacks on, but it's really not worth it. We just don't have enough power to run those PS2 games using PCSX2. Going into this, I knew we weren't going to get great performance for PC gaming, given that we only have a dual-core CPU and a Radeon 2 GPU running at 1100 MHz. It did much better with emulation than I thought it would, but overall, for $250, if you're looking for something just to browse the web on, watch some YouTube videos, get on your Zoom and Google Classroom, I would go with a cheaper Chromebook. I've seen some 14-inch Chromebooks recently going as low as $150, and with that, we do have access to Google Play, so if you're into Android gaming, you can play your games on that, and they're going to work just fine. I was really hoping that after adding that extra stick of RAM to this little HP here, we'd see a significant jump in gaming performance, but really, when it comes down to it, this is just way too low end. Radeon 2 graphics and a dual-core CPU in 2021 really just isn't cutting it anymore for a Windows 10 machine. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. Really appreciate you watching. If you're interested in seeing anything else running on this little laptop, just let me know in the comments below. I was actually thinking about installing Linux on this thing and seeing how it performs, so if you want to see a video like that, just let me know. But that's it for this one, and like always, thanks for watching.